the Forsaken Warrior name, it resonated so much with me personally. Was I heard Steve Johnson's story about how he was an MMA fighter and he was training, he was fighting out of this gym, and he was living in his car, and he went through all these hardships, and he felt like he was forsaken by everyone. He was this forsaken warrior, and it just made me think about my journey in mixed martial arts. When I first started fighting, when I had my first cage fight ever, I had moved in with my best friend who was murdered. I had moved in with his family, and I was sleeping on their couch, and everyone was super depressed. Nobody even talked. His brother had been shot, and he was recovering from that, and it was just a really dark place, you know. And all these things had happened in my life at the same time, which caused me to start fighting. That's kind of how I coped with the situation. That's how I dealt with it. He was my best friend. I met him when we were like 15, and he was a giant, right? So I met him, we're 15 years old. He's 315 pounds, dude. Like built like Shrek. I used to make, he did not like that, right? I'd call him Shrek and he'd get pissed, dude. Because he looked like Shrek though. He had like the big old forearms, you know what I mean? He looked like an ogre. And he got bullied like to no end, dude. I mean, people, all these neighborhood kids would be like, give me your money, whatever you got, you know? Ooh, he'd give him money. They'd make him freaking go on his hands and knees and use him as a footstool. For real. I used to, you know, and I was like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, I was like, dude, like, this isn't right, you know? Like, this is not right. And, you know, because we became friends, and it, like, pissed me off, you know? And I was the guy that liked to fight a lot, you know? And nobody would mess with me and all this stuff. But it was, like, obvious to me where I was like, dude, you could, like, beat everyone's ass, dude. You're 315 pounds. Like, if you just punch someone, like, you'd knock everybody out, you know? And so I actually trained him. I would bring him over to my house, and I'd, like, make him spar with me. I was like, get the gloves on. And I would just hit him, like, light, right? And he would fall down and be like, you knocked me out. You know, he didn't like to fight. He didn't want to fight. He didn't want anything to do with fighting. And so I kept doing this, though. And the biggest thing I would say is, psychologically, I told him, you could beat everybody. You could beat everybody. You're bigger than everyone. You're stronger than everyone. Da, da, da. And one day we're at my house, and we had all my crew little buddies that we used to hang out with, right? And there was this older guy named Chuck there. And so Chuck, you know, is getting his ego stroked over here. And Pat just out of nowhere stands up and he goes, I'll beat your ass right now, to Chuck, right? And everybody literally goes, Pat, shut up, dude. Shut the hell up. Freaking sit down, dude. Like, hecka dismissive of, like, he's like a little flea. Like, sit down, right? Shut the hell up, Pat. He goes, no, I'll beat your ass right now, right? And I swear, I'm not kidding, dude. Everybody looks and they see that Pat's a giant, bro. And Pat just started knocking people out, like, from that day onward, dude. Like, he had this, he flipped the switch, and he went from being bullied to being the bully. And unfortunately, he couldn't turn it off. And he ended up getting into drugs and stuff, and he'd get in fights all the time. And I did try to stop him at a certain point. I said, hey, man, you got to stop this, you know? And he goes, I'll beat your ass too, you know? And I was like, damn, like, yeah.
What
and
did I create?
Yeah, I took him to the park and I tried to wrestle him. I was like, let's just wrestle, you know? And he beat me. And so that was kind of like, he was like not listening to you, you know? And shortly after that, he was at a Lake Siskiyou in Mount Shasta. And he was beating up his brother and his brother's friend. And somebody in the campsite next to him said, hey, shut the hell up, you know? Like, you're making too much noise. Be quiet or whatever. And I guess Pat was like, I'll whoop your ass, you know, right now. And dude was like, stay the hell away, you know. And And so Pat came charging at him, and dude just shot him full freaking holes, dude, just killed him. And so it was really sad because the newspaper, they wrote it out like he deserved it and he was this terrible person, and the law enforcement didn't like him. Everybody knew this bully, you know, everybody knew this guy that was just a mean person, and that's how he was portrayed when he died. And I knew him though when he was a kid, and he was my best friend. He was the kind of, you know, you don't have a lot of people like this, but I knew that if I was stranded in the middle of nowhere in Mexico and I found a phone, I could call Pat and say, I'm stranded in the middle of nowhere in Mexico, come find me. He'd do it, bro. He would grab his stuff and drive to Mexico, and he wouldn't even know where I was. He'd find me. That's the kind of friend he was. Like, that would be his only sole purpose in life, you know what I mean? And me and this guy, we used to walk the railroad tracks. There was railroad tracks from Weed, California, where we lived, to Mount Shasta, which was like 7 miles away. We would just walk those railroad tracks for like hours and hours and hours and talk about life. He'd tell me all his hopes and dreams, and he likes this girl and he wants to have a pig farm and all this stuff, you know. You know, it's funny, man. Like, we used to sing that song, Strawberry Wine. You remember that song? Yeah. Like, those are my memories I have of him, though, you know what I mean? Like, this is the kind of guy he was. And it was a shame, you know, he got killed.
My name is Nicholas Littlefield. Most people know me by Nico. 31 years old. Born here in Medford. Kind of lived all over Oregon. Lived in Klamath Falls, Ashland, and most of my time up north in a town called Tigard. Grew up in trailer parks my whole life, which is kind of nice, more of like a close-knit community here. Parents have been divorced pretty much my whole life growing up, so that was kind of a weird dynamic for me, living between houses. I was kind of an awkward kid growing up. I had friends, but I never felt like I'd fit in anywhere, so I was always trying to be like the funny guy growing up. That always seemed to be my in. I try to be the class clown growing up, but I don't know, I just felt socially awkward. I didn't know like what to say and anything like that. Got bullied a bit growing up just because of my awkwardness. Like, I didn't know how to interact with people or what to say. So naturally, as kids do growing up, people made fun of me. Got into a few fights, nothing too big. Luckily, living with my dad up north in Tigard, I had a stepbrother. His name's Ben. He's the older brother, so he was definitely looking out for me. So that was pretty awesome. Coming into another family, so to speak, and having somebody like that to look out for me was pretty cool. Obviously, as an only child, I never had that, but 9 years old was when I moved in with them, and he pretty much had my back from day one. Yeah, I kind of had a typical childhood, though, growing up. Nothing too spectacular. Played soccer all the way through senior year of high school. Did track and field all of high school except for my senior year, and I played rugby my last year of high school, and that was a blast. Never had any like serious contact sport before until that, and that was the time of my life. But I was a small kid. I was like maybe 150 by my senior year. I was 114 my freshman year, so a bit of a development through that. But I was always in the weight room trying to, you know, get big, trying to be that next Arnold Schwarzenegger or Jay Cutler, something like that. But I do some personal training on the side. It's just kind of a passion. When I was doing CrossFit, I was also a CrossFit coach. So it developed in there, kind of mentoring people. And I just love seeing people kind of grow up physically and achieve those goals. But you can also see the mental progress in that too. Because I have my own past history with kind of battling with mental health issues, and fitness was always there for me. Like, that's what got me through those really hard times. It was pretty good depression. I didn't go see anybody for it, but it was a few months after getting out of the military. And I never experienced anything crazy or anything like that during my service, but when I got out, like, I couldn't find my reason or my purpose, because you can quantify that in the military. You're like, yeah, my job does X, Y, and Z, and I can prove that because I'm doing this, and it protects this, and so on and so forth. It's for national defense. But getting out, I was working a security job, and it's like, what am I doing, man? Like, I was guarding billions of dollars worth of national defense assets, and now I'm here working a security job. Like, how do you even compare that? So I was a bit lost for that first year, and started drinking more and got real depressed. And I'd say towards the end of 2017, it got real bad one night. I had a loaded 45, and I kind of just picked it up, and I was gonna pull the trigger, but I just put it down. This voice popped in my head, and I was married at the time, and I just thought about my wife finding me, and I was like, nah. I put it down, and I stopped drinking for about a year after that, which was pretty convenient, because after that, my wife and I, we kind of fell out. She had joined the military as I was getting out, so we kind of drifted apart a little bit in that aspect. But since I was working on myself and I had quit drinking, I was in a better spot mentally to kind of take that on. And but going to the gym, it was like my escape. If I was having these negative thoughts, I'd go to the gym and work it out. Just be like, cool, we're not going to do that today. You're not going to drink today. You're not going to think about that stuff. Let's go to the gym and work out. And that was my escape for the longest time. But it gave me a chance to work through those emotions, come back and sit down and be like, hey, why are we feeling like this? Like, what is the root cause, instead of just ignoring it? So it was a bit of, let's ignore it in the meantime, work through the emotions, but now that we're calmer, let's figure out why we feel this way. But like, what's the why? And there was a lot of personal growth and development going through that. But yeah, fitness pretty much saved my life.
So my whole entire life, I never knew my father. I never met him. I never talked to him. All I knew was stories about him. And he was an alcoholic, and he did drugs. He was a foster kid himself, and he lived a crazy life. He killed somebody. He, his whole life was just sucked up into drugs and alcohol. And so all I had was stories about my father. And then my stepdad, he was an alcoholic too, and he used drugs as too. And where I grew up in the inner city of California, in the Bay Area, and it was at the height of gangs in America. So everywhere I went, there was the Bloods, the Crips, the Norteños, the Sureños. Everybody had red or blue on. And then there was me, just this kid that wasn't a gangster, who was living in a home that was dysfunctional, and I had just tons of inner turmoil inside of me. My emotions were just going crazy all the time, and I was just always living in survival mode. I'd go to school, and there would just be gangster kids trying to jump me all the time, threatening me, and I had to avoid that however I could. And because it was always like 5-on-1, and I didn't really have any friends or anything like that. It was just me, just trying to survive. And then when I would go home, my dad, he would be drunk, and he'd be mad about something, and so it was just a super stressful environment all the time, and I just didn't fit in. I was just this forsaken kid, and all by myself. I felt really, really alone, and nothing changed. Like that's just how I lived, and I just got by day to day until one day when I was in 7th grade, they introduced the school wrestling. They introduced us to wrestling, And so they did this game called King of the Mat. They brought all the kids from all the different, it was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So this middle school. And I went to a school called the Bulldogs. We were the Bulldogs. And they brought all the kids to this wrestling mat, and they explained to us this game called King of the Mat. And you would have the 2 smallest guys, and they would go wrestle each other. Whoever got the first takedown won the match. So that's how you won. If you took the other guy down, you won. And it would have the 2 smallest guys, the winner goes on. And the winner goes on all the way up to the biggest guy in the school. I was somewhere in the middle there. And at this point, you know, I wasn't on anybody's radar. You know, I didn't even exist. And it got to me in the middle, and then I beat everyone. I beat everyone in the whole entire school. And once I finished that and they declared me the king of the mat, I looked, and for the first time in my life, everybody's eyes, they looked at me differently, because everyone had always looked at me with just like disdain and looked down upon me and just looked at me as insignificant, as nothing, as like I didn't even exist. And I remember when I won King of the Mat, it was like all of a sudden everybody saw me. All of a sudden I just saw everybody look at me like, who is this guy? And then people started asking me, they're like, how are you so good at wrestling? And I was like, I don't even know. I just was born like this, you know? And that was where I found my outlet in life and my path to being a warrior, a forsaken warrior. And so I had been forsaken, and on that day, you know, the warrior in me was found, and I devoted my whole entire life to this. In 7th grade, I was like, this is the path that I'm gonna go on. And wrestling, that was my outlet. That was how all that turmoil and everything going on inside me, that's how I dealt with it. So after I was introduced to wrestling and I found my path in life to being a warrior, my mom and my stepdad, they finally split up. There was a huge blow up, and the police were involved, and my dad, he went one way with my brother and sister, and I went with my mom with my sister. And we moved to the mountains. We moved out to the middle of nowhere, to the wilderness. And when I got there, there wasn't any wrestling there. They didn't have a wrestling program at school. And I had pretty much dropped out of school anyways. I was pretty much a dropout at this point. I wasn't going to school. I wasn't doing anything I was supposed to. I was getting into all kinds of trouble that I don't even want to talk about. But they didn't have a wrestling program. But my dad, my stepdad, he had bought me weight set. So he got me weights, and he got me the jump rope. He got me a heavy bag, a speed bag. I had everything I needed to be a warrior, to train. And that's what I did. I obsessed with training all the time. I had all of Bruce Lee's books, and I did all his workouts, and I would be doing jumping rope, doing curls, going for a run, bench pressing, hitting a heavy bag. I would do these circuits, and I would just train constantly all the time. I would run for endless miles in the woods. And I had this dream. I had this dream that I was going to be this great fighter. And I wanted, to me, it was such a dream to see myself in an actual ring, you know, to have my hands taped up, to have gloves on my hands, to have a referee there, to have honor. There was a kid that everybody found out about, and he had said that he had fought before, and he was getting out of juvenile hall. He was 18 years old, and he was 215 pounds. And they said, hey, this guy will fight you, you know, and I never turned down a fight. So I was like, okay, let me fight this guy. And so we set it up, and once he got out, the guy got straight out of juvenile hall, and he went straight to my house to fight me, and he ended up knocking me out cold. He knocked me out unconscious. And, you know, I couldn't believe that had happened to me, but it was my first lesson. It was my first lesson in that size matters and power matters and strength matters. And so I realized that I wasn't, even with all my skills, even with all my training, I wasn't strong enough to fight this guy. And so I needed to become stronger. So I stopped fighting and I devoted myself completely to just lifting and getting bigger and getting stronger. You know, after living on the streets, you know, sleeping in my car, sleeping on couches, all this, like living this like homeless lifestyle, I was used to that. And so I ended up getting into the United States Forest Service. And in the United States Forest Service, you would just go out to the middle of nowhere, and again, you'd fight. You would fight a giant fire that was trying to kill everything. And so I loved that adrenaline rush. I loved that. And so I would go out into the middle of nowhere, and you would work 16 hours a day, and then you'd go and sleep in the dirt. You would just throw a blanket on the ground, and you would just sleep in the dirt. And for me, that wasn't even hard, because my whole entire life was way harder than that. Living with my dad, living with my uncle, it was harder than sleeping in the dirt, you know? And so it was easy for me. Being a wildland firefighter, for me, it was easy. And everybody used to, they used to laugh about it. You know, my captain, he used to say like, Scott, he thinks this is like a vacation, because that's what I would tell him. I'd be like, oh man, I'm on vacation right now. I love the beautiful wilderness. I love being out here in the woods. And everybody was like miserable because we were sleeping in the dirt, and you know, I was having a good time. And so that changed my life. Going in the United States Forest Service changed my life. And I met some really great people. And for a couple years, I was in there and I continued to fight. So I would fight fires during the fire season, and then the off season, I would fight in cage fights still. And when you're in the Forest Service, you feel like you could do anything, because they give you the biggest task. Hey, you got to go fight this fire that's like, you know, 100,000 acres, and you got to go fight it and beat it. And you'd go and fight it, you would beat it. And so I started having this mentality like I could do anything. I was like, I could do anything. And that's when I won my titles. That's when I won the brass knuckles heavyweight championship title, the full contact federation championship title, heavyweight title, and I won the Battle in the Berg light heavyweight and middleweight title. And so I won all these titles in all these different weight classes. I'll fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. And I accomplished all my dreams and my goals. And so, you know, when I was a kid, I dreamt of like fighting in an actual ring in a cage. And so here I was actually doing that now, and I became a champion. And so after I became a champion, I struggled with my motivation, because I had fought for so long. That's what I had always done. You know, this path of a warrior, that once I achieved everything I set out to do, I struggled with my motivation to continue it. And so I kind of lost myself a little bit. And one thing I was searching for is I always wanted that just war. I wanted to have that fight, that just like the ultimate battle and the greatest fight of all time, you know, that tested my soul and my spirit and everything. And so that was very hard to find. I found that was very difficult to find, a fight where you're so well matched up against somebody like that. And so I kept fighting in search of that, but I kind of started to lose my passion and my drive. And so I had a, you know, up and down fighting career at that point, because I was searching for my reason. I was searching for my purpose, you know, because I became the warrior that I needed to be, and I was that, you know. And so I didn't need to accomplish that or achieve that anymore. I needed something else to accomplish and achieve. And so finally I came across Troy Wachowski in Spartan boxing. And when I came across Troy Wachowski in Spartan boxing, Troy, he had this vision. He was a fighter, and he had, you know, fought 150 fights, but he found a way to use this to build a gym. He built this boxing gym, and when I met him, he gave me the keys to the gym, and he said, you could do whatever you want here. Whatever you want to do it. I give you the keys to the kingdom. And so I took those keys, and I just looked at his vision that he manifested. He had nothing. He started in a carport in a garage, and he manifested this gym so that he could reach the youth. Long before Spartan boxing, there was bulldog boxing. And a young man named Troy Wachowski walked into that gym and found his destiny. Can you tell that story?
I was just lost cause. I don't know.
How old were you?
I was about probably 9, 10 years old.
And were you already involved in gangs and stuff like that? Like that's kind of.
Well, my family was, and my sister, and just the people were around, and it was just I seen it every day, so it was easy to fall into it. And I got older sisters and older brothers, so that's who I looked up to. And my parents worked hard, and they're always out of town. We kind of just supervised ourselves, and did whatever we want. But our parents was trying to provide, so they're doing what they had to do. My dad was truck driving, my mom was going to school, and so it was a hard moment at the time for the family to be together in one place at the same time.
So did you see a lot of people go into gangs that were your friends and people around you?
Absolutely. I see it all the time. Friends, families, and just the culture that's you're around, and when it's around you, that's what usually the 5 friends that you're around. A lot of my mentors tell me that's who you're going to become. You tell me your 5 friends, tell me the 5 people you hang out with every day, and that's eventually what you're going to try to go do. So
then what brought you into a boxing gym? Like, how did that begin? How did you did someone bring you to it, or did you just see it? Or
no, I actually got in a fight behind the school with these 2 twins, and that's how it happened. One of the neighbors seen me. His name was Ruben. Can't forget the name. And he rushed outside, and he was like, hey. And I thought he was like a teacher, or...
You got to find Ruben and thank him.
I know, I got to thank Ruben. And he was like, no, wait, I just want to let you know that, you got fast hands. I want you to take you to this gym that my son goes to. And that's how it started. And I fell in love with the sport once I walked in the gym, seen people sparring, people just, the harmony of the gym, the sound of the bell. It was my place. It was like in harmony. It was my time to shine.
So then that put you on the right track in your life, that gave you a kind of a life?
Yes, I think that's when I found my purpose, like my passion. Just, I had a lot of anger built, and I feel like, if you get knocked down, it's how you're going to get up. And it's like all the rounds that you put in, all the work you put in, it's going to show when you step in the ring. So that's why I like boxing, because you can't play boxing. You could play basketball, you could play football, but boxing, you got to be able to put all the hard work, and it's all on you, and it builds character. That's why I love boxing. After Olympic trials, I wanted to turn pro and be able to succeed in my dreams, and be able to provide for my family, and also save some money to build some homes in the Philippines. But God had different plans for me, and I started the gym in my carport in my driveway. Had about 20 to 40 students after it started getting built from 2007 to 2012. And at that time, it was hard because there was no coaches coaching me. I was just training on my own, and we had kids from the neighborhood wanting me to train them. And that's how Spartan was born. And, at the time I was heartbroken because I couldn't really train myself and try to go on next level, boxing, to where I could really pursue my dreams. So I wanted to be able to give back and give more than I could take, and give back to my community, because I've taken so much. To meet the landlord, Larry Leonard. And so I went and met him, and man, he was an interesting man. He asked what my visions were, and he goes, I got another building in Medford. So I came here, and I already knew where the rings were going to be, the racks, and the other side over there was empty. And And he goes, hey, so what do you think? I'm like, this is it. This is where I'm going to build it. So at the time, I just had this vision, and I said, hey, if you give me a chance, you know, like a year to 8 months, I'll make it up to. And he did. So it was like, you know, one of my sayings is chances make champions. You got to be able to take the risk and risk it all, you know, like for a good reward. And I think God was on my side, because I was given back to without nothing, like true abundance. Like, I'm not doing all this to expect them to do something for me. I'm really giving it from the heart. Like, I don't want nothing back. I want to be able to change lives and see lives change. And that's what sparks me in here. You just got to be a man, and you got to be a woman. You just got to be able to, you know, I think it's a lifestyle. This is not a sport to me. This is a lifestyle. You got to live it, dream it, sweat it, bleed it. You got to be able to do the runs in the morning, do, you know, what you have going on in life. You got to be able to balance life, because if not, you're going to fall apart. You're going to end up putting too much to where you're not balancing what you need to get done to be as a man. And like doing that it takes a lot, and you got to live that lifestyle. And a lot of people come to me, hey, Troy, I did this and I did that, but it's not working. It's your mind state. It's what you think and what you're trying to do. And it's like, some people are like, well, I did that for that person, and, you know, and I got a bad reaction. I'm like, well, you're doing it out of the wrong. You're not doing it because you want to do it from the heart. You're doing it because you want something in return. You got to be able to do it and love it and do it for a purpose, you know, like, and that's part of being a man. You know, you got to be able to do that and show these youngsters what it's like to be able to do that and see lives change, you know. I'd like to say Spartan boxing is welcome for all walks of life, for kids, families, parents. If you're having a hard time in life, don't be afraid to come in here, because it's not all about just getting in the ring and sparring. We teach, you know, people how to defend themselves, good morals, healthy habits, and, you know, the mentorship part and academics. So come here and check it out, because it's all for everybody, for people that are in addiction, for recovery, for, you know, you're having suicidal thoughts. We want to be able to help you out and, you know, help families. We want to be able to hopefully feed the community when they need it. So anything you guys need, just come to Spartan Boxing, and hopefully we could, you know, find a way for you to, you know, reach your goals and dreams.
So, and you said something about mental health. Does this help? Is this like therapy for some people?
Absolutely. This is therapy. Back in ancient times, like, exercise was one of the greatest therapies there was. Just working out and being able to, you know, focus on your breathing, and that's great therapy right there. Learning how to channel aggression in a positive way.
When I linked up with him, I was like, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to be a part of. I need to be a part of something bigger than me, and reach out to other people that are just like me, and lift them up out of the gutter, out of the dirt, out of the pit, out of the, you know, the freaking the side of the road, out of the wilderness. And so here my life began to come together finally. And so I started having a life for myself, and I started, you know, having something greater than this fighting career that I had. And I wanted to do more with it, you know? And I had been fighting for so long, though. I was like, okay, that's what I do, you know? That's what I do. That's who I am. And I needed that. I needed the training. I needed it. And I needed the competition as well. And so finally, eventually, I came across Jimmy Jeanette.
My name is Jimmy Jeanette. I'm a retired professional mixed martial arts fighter. I'm the owner of Checkered Past MMA in Springfield and the head coach. Checkered Past is a low-cost gym in Springfield. We train in Muay Thai, we train in boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu, and of course mixed martial arts. We also have yoga offerings, which is great. We have preteen classes, and we also have classes for the little ones. And why we set this gym up was it was a dream of mine a long time ago to set up a low-cost gym that could reach out into the community and make some positive impacts. When I first got into mixed martial arts in 2010, I really needed something to come into my life and help me overcome some hardships. And mixed martial arts really helped enhance my life and give me something to throw my time and energy into that was constructive, and I want to share that with people. Something that's near and dear to our hearts is we want to reach out to some of the less fortunate people, people that need a second chance, a helping hand up. It could be women who are domestic violence survivors, people struggling with substance and alcohol issues like I once did, men and women who are getting out of prison or jail that might want to come in and do something positive instead of out there, raising hell in the streets. That's, we want to make a positive impact here at this little gym at 2600 Main Street down in Springfield. And that's why we're here. We got an open door for everybody. If you're interested in training at Checkered Pass, just come on down during our open business hours, fill out a waiver, and take a couple free days, see if you like it.
So when I connected with Jimmy Jeanette, I wanted to help him in his mission to reach people that were just trapped in drugs and alcoholism. And so I wanted to support him and be a part of what he was doing. And so I did seminars with him. I went with him while he spoke and he shared his message. And I just always encouraged him in everything that he was doing. I encouraged him in what he was trying to do, trying to better people's lives, to try to reach people that were in a pit and pull them out of the pit and put them on solid ground. And so I saw the greatness of what he was doing, and I wanted to be a part of that. And so I did everything that I could to support him. And one day, as a joke, he said to me, he said, "Hey Scott, you want to help me spread this message by fighting me for King of the Cage?" And without missing a beat, I said yes.
I'm fighting Scott Davenport. He's a heavyweight out of Medford, Oregon. He's a smaller heavyweight. He stands 5'10" and he weighs about 230 pounds.
I look at him as a guy that's gonna elevate me up to the next level. Jimmy's pretty much every fight he's ever been in, he's been the main event. And I'm really excited to just get elevated to the next level, coming to King of the Cage, getting a chance to fight him.
People ask me that question all the time, what kind of style do you have? Well, the game's evolved. Everybody knows the four corners, the boxing, the kickboxing, the jiu-jitsu, and the wrestling. It's how we blend them together.
In this fight, I'm looking to get Jimmy down to the ground and submit him somehow. I've been working on my submissions. Like to get a choke, a Kimura armbar, any submission I can catch on.
Scott's an MMA fighter. He's got a lot of experience. He's got 25 fights total, from my understanding. He knows how to get some finishes.
I've been training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for years, so I've been practicing my submission game, and I feel like it's one of those things that when it raises up to a higher level, you just elevate to another level, and people can't compete with you.
It's a fight. There's a lot of emotion, raw emotion. Normally I'll just go and take a knee or even sit down, same kind of thing. I'm going to shake my opponent's hand before and after, and at the end of the day, it's just all respect.
And so after I fought Jimmy, it elevated me to a whole completely different level than I ever had been before. In so many ways in my life. One, I wrote a book. I wrote a book about my fighting career and about my quest for the perfect fight, is what I was searching for. I was always searching for this evenly matched bout between me and another fighter, where it was just a war that tested my spirit and my soul and everything inside of me. That was the journey that I was on. And so after I fought Jimmy, I was like, I got to get better. And so I set out to just become the biggest and the strongest version of myself that I possibly could be. And I achieved that. And I became the strongest fighter in the world because obviously there's Mariusz Pudzianowski, who was the world's strongest man who became a fighter. But when he started fighting, he stopped lifting weights. He didn't even lift weights anymore. And so he was just a fighter who had been the world's strongest man in the past. But me, I was going to be my very strongest when I fought. And for 5 years, I did strength training and powerlifting and bodybuilding and strongman, and I competed and I became Southern Oregon Strongest Man, and I broke powerlifting records, state records, and I even ended up competing in bodybuilding competitions, and then I found that fight that I had been looking for, that I wrote this entire book, Mixed Martial Arts. I wrote an entire book on mixed martial arts about this fight that I was searching for, and I finally found it when I became the best version of myself I'd ever been. And so I got as strong as I possibly could. I was squatting 600 pounds, bench pressing 500 pounds, deadlifting 700 pounds, and fighting and training to fight. And I had, at Spartans Boxing, I had the best training camp of my entire life, where I trained perfectly and prepared perfectly for my fight. And I fought a war veteran, somebody who had even lived a crazier life than me, who had been over in Iraq and Afghanistan and had, been shot, been in gunfights and had bombs exploding and everything, and so lived an even crazier, more intense life than me. I found this opponent who was a great warrior, and he had all the skills in the world. He was a jiu-jitsu master, and so I fought him, and I was able to prevail against him and defeat him in a decision, just because I was stronger than him. And so I got that slight advantage and I beat him on points, but he messed me up way worse than I messed him up. So he busted me up really bad, and I got that fight that I had been searching for my whole entire life, since I was a kid, since I was started wrestling when I was 12 or 13 years old or whatever it was. Here I was 37 years old, and I got that fight, that dream fight that I had been looking for my entire life, and that perfect opponent for me, and I was the best version of myself that I possibly could be. I was the strongest fighter in the world. When you're in mixed martial arts or powerlifting or strongman or bodybuilding, these things that God put me into, you learn what inspired people to get into them. There was a study done on trainees, and they were asked by doctors, what is the hardest set you've ever done in your entire life? What is the hardest set you've ever done? And all of them, without fail, would associate it with some traumatic event that happened. So they would look at it and go, well, my mom died, and then I went to the gym after that, and I completely just killed myself into the gym, And so they would have this association with pain. They would have this painful, traumatic experience that drove them into their training and caused them to do something that they were never able to do before.
My childhood was an interesting one. Grew up with a, I'm not going to say abusive father, but a very strict father that turned into an abusive father as I got older and decided to not listen to him anymore. Young childhood was hit or miss on a good day, a bad day. It didn't, depending on my attitude, was his attitude. Having the same attitude as him didn't turn out very well. As I got a little bit older, got into sports, started getting strong, lifting weights in middle school, started wrestling, At this time, my relationship with my dad turned more physical, and there were some altercations. One instance, we were at a family member's house, and an argument turned physical, put him in a cross-face cradle, and just squeezed him real hard. And that was the day my life changed for the worst.
For the worst?
For the worst. Once my dad realized that I was as strong as him, you know, at 13, I was sitting at 6'1", 225, and squatting, you know, close to 500 pounds, benching in the 320 range, you know. And he wasn't a small guy either. He was 6'1", 220, 230 in that same area. But once he realized that I was as strong as him, then things changed. That was about 12, 13 years old, 8th grade. High school was a nightmare. He was there for all my sporting events. He said he was supportive, but he wasn't really. Once I hit about 18 years of age, every birthday after that, he always had to ask me how old I was. You know, just didn't pay attention to me anymore. 2020, things changed for the even the worst. We moved to a new town. They moved onto the property we were living on. Without getting into too much detail, there was a lot of drinking. He spent a whole night drinking. He tried to drive his truck the next morning, turned into an altercation. The worst one yet. We went to some serious blows. He was in the hospital for a day or two because of what happened. He come back from the hospital, things were awkward. We still all lived on the same property, so had to mind your P's and Q's kind of thing. It was awkward for a couple of months. He promised to quit drinking. That lasted all about 2 days. And that was in March. And in November, with all of our families, my brother's family and myself and my parents, we went up in the snow to get Christmas trees. Things were said, decisions were made, turned into a altercation with firearms this time. I packed up my family, we went home, we packed the house, and we left. It definitely changed my life from there. You know, I was good friends with my dad, even though we had a really bad relationship. We were still friends. We weren't a father-son. We were more like your buddy that you like but you don't like kind of thing. And after that, it never went back. I haven't talked to him since that day. It was the day after Thanksgiving, 2020. Caused me a lot of mental anguish, you know, in a depression, basically just lost my whole family. I didn't have any grandparents anymore after that, or before that, grandparents died. Just didn't have family anymore, except my wife and kids, and then my in-laws who graciously took us in. At first, it started out just as the football coach was like, hey, we're opening up the middle school weight room. It'd be really cool if you came and, you know, started working out. So just started working out to have fun. You know, when I was younger, my parents went to the gym, Gold's Gym in Medford. And they used to have that daycare in there, you know, you could go in there and we'd go to the daycare and they'd go work out. So like, it was always something in the back of my mind that, hey, you can do this, you know. Went in there and just started moving weight and realized, hey, I'm a big guy. I can move some weight, you know, and it helped with football. It helped with wrestling, you know, so why not? You know, let's move some weight. And then, of course, you get into high school and it's all about the weight room and football. And it was just a lot of, and I'm not saying he's completely at fault for a bad childhood because I was an asshole child. You know, I grew up and realized that I grew up very quick and realized that my parents aren't always right about everything. and challenged his authority a lot. You know, generational, honestly, mental illness. And as I got older and had my own kids, I realized that I didn't want to be around that anymore. But, you know, all through middle school, high school, it just always seemed like it was a fight for dominance. And growing up in a house like that, you either get tough or you die, you know? So there was no, everybody says you don't remember the good times, you only remember the bad times. And that might be true, but I can remember a handful of good times. If you didn't have thick skin, you didn't have a witty comeback, you didn't have a little bit of bass in your voice, you got destroyed. You know, and meant to feel inferior and the scum and the bad one, you know. My dad snapped at my brother once when I was younger. I have a little brother. Kind of went off on him once, and I realized that I got to protect him. He won't admit to that, but I think subconsciously I decided that I needed to help protect him, so I focused most of the brunt on myself. And it was a 30-year battle with my dad before I gave up and said, I don't want to be around you anymore. And it just, one thing after another, from, like I said, the age of 13 till the age of damn near 30. There's instances of tear down, run out fights in the front yard because the laundry wasn't put away, or the laundry room was left dirty, or my pickup had a bad fuel pump and it sat in the driveway for too long. You know, just the smallest thing that would be inconvenient to him turned into a slug out fight. There was plenty of holes in walls patched, you know, plenty of broken this, that, and the other thing. And being a child growing up in that it messes with your head. It creates a lot of demons. And I was lucky enough and fortunate enough growing up playing sports that I could take those demons and turn them loose on the football field, or turn them loose in the wrestling room, and not have to deal with them in my own head. I had a way to escape. And then we got done with school and there was no more escape. So I turned to beer and alcohol for a long time, you know, and I can see where it would release for some people, create a release for some people, but it just made me feel so bad the next day that I was hiding these demons that I couldn't do that anymore. So, plus I blew up to about 420 pounds, you know, and I looked around and at the time I had a 2-year-old and a newborn, and I was like, this isn't a life I want them to see. You know, you can either be dying on the couch drinking beer, or you can be doing something else. I didn't want to be that guy on the couch every night. Get home from work, first thing you do is grab a beer and sit on the couch. I didn't want to be that absentee that's still there, you know. So after high school and a little bit of college I did, I went, I took a break. I was done with the gym. I was losing the battle with the demons. It was nothing but depression. Couldn't figure it out. A buddy of mine introduced me into bow hunting. I was a rifle hunter growing up, but he introduced me into bow hunting, and that became a relief. Well, I was sitting at like 350, 365 pounds or so, and I figured if I was going to go chase elk in the mountain with a bow, I needed to lose some weight. So I went back to the gym for about 6 months, lost 70 pounds, was feeling good. Met a girl who's now my wife. Went that elk season and didn't see a damn elk to save my life, but I was hooked. So for the next few years, it turned less into gym working out, more just rack packs, you know, putting on your hunting pack and going hiking every weekend getting all the cardio you can so you can go up and down them hills. And then I shot an elk with my cousin was my hunting partner. And I'd just gotten married that year. Went out, got married in June, went and shot an elk opening day in August. My cousin was with me. And we shot the elk and we had to pack it out a little ways. And he started getting sick. And I was kind of, are you dehydrated, what? And a couple of months later, he was diagnosed with MS. And it just kind of killed the hunting vibe for me. This was my little cousin. My cousin spent a lot of time with us growing up because he had 2 sisters, and he didn't want to spend summers with his sisters, so he'd come and live with us. So he became another little brother. And to have somebody who you grew up with, who was also an escape from dad, come down with a deadly disease. And then for him to not be able to do the activity you've been doing with him since you were, a teenager, definitely it hurt. Like, here's my little brother who's dying, essentially. And now we can't go do the activity we do together because we hunted everything. Elk, deer, we were hunting year round. If we weren't hunting, we were trapping, and it was just like another kick in the nuts, man. I had the issues with my dad, but I found an escape for that after sports with hunting with my cousin. Then he gets sick and can't do it anymore. So now I got nothing. So I sat on the couch for 10 years and did nothing. Damn near 10 years and did nothing. I hung out, well, it wasn't 10 years. 8 years. And just became that guy who sat on the couch and drank beer. And things with my parents about that time it's when everything really happened during that period. We left the dangerous situation. We came over here back on this side of the mountain, and I needed an escape. I had to get out of here. I couldn't be in this state anymore. I couldn't be in this valley anymore. I couldn't be around my family anymore. So we moved out of state for about a year, and it was great. Rejuvenated myself, pulled myself out of the bad situation. It was great. We came back. I was sitting at work for about a month or so and realized that I'm going back to the couch, going back to the beer. Being back in this state, being back in this valley, just slowly was pulling me back down that black hole. So I tried therapy. Did it for about 3 months, every week, twice a week. And it helped me work through my problems, but the problems were, as far as the therapist said, like, you basically just got to live with them now. We've talked about them, we've figured them out. We know what we need to work on, we just need to work on them. So I was sitting at work, had a few minutes to myself trying to decide, well, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what can I do? And my wife brought it up to me. She goes, hey, when you were lifting or you had an outlet, you were much happier. Like, okay, well, let's go get an outlet. So I went down to the Planet Fitness, signed up, was in there working out, and within 2-3 weeks working out there, I was already lifting more than everybody in there, and realized, like, this isn't the place for me, but this is the activity I want to do. So I need to find something to do with this activity. So I started looking for strongman gyms. I found this one. It came in here and talked to Steve, the owner, and we couldn't afford a membership yet, but he said, hey, come in on Sundays when we're closed and we'll do they had a private lift session going on. So I came in and did some private lifting with him, and he instantly told me, hey, we need you in here. Like, this is the place for you. Came in here and started lifting, and Scott Davenport actually said something to me one day. He goes, "You're hella strong, but your form sucks." And I won't lie, it's the kind of the little kick in the ass that I needed to be like, hey, if an outsider comes in here and goes, you know, shows up and is strong, somebody who's been lifting their whole life goes, hey man, you got potential, maybe it's time to step it up. So then I came in here, and at first I was hesitant, you know, I wasn't hitting anything big, you know, and one day it just clicked. I picked something up, you know, I came in a shitty mood, had bad attitude mentally, you know, and picked up something and walked out happy. And I was like, what was that? You know, that was, it just changed. Oh, like flipping a light switch on. Then you get hooked. You know, I come in here, it doesn't matter how bad a day I have at work. It doesn't matter how bad a day I have with the family. I can come in here and it makes the demons be quiet. It can be dead silent in here. No music playing, nobody's yelling, nobody's doing anything. But it's like the second you grab that barbell or that squat bar, everything just goes quiet. You know, I've since having what you could call childhood trauma into young adult trauma. When I lay down at night, I gotta have music playing, TV playing, something. When I close my eyes, I can hear the voices. And the one time I don't hear them is when I come in the gym and grab that barbell. And I would recommend to anybody who's got fighting any kind of demon, just come in here and do something. Even if it's just walking in the door for a week, just get that pattern down. Come in here, pick something up, because they will go away eventually. There's something about cold steel in a hot building that just shuts the demons off. You know, you can take out all your aggressions, you can take out all your anger, you can take out everything. You know, they talk about, I think the suicide rate right now is through the roof, especially with younger men in their 18 to 30 range, 18 to 40 range. It's because they don't have an escape. They don't have a way to shut it off. And find you a gym where it's a community. This one's special. You know, everybody can come in here. Anybody can come in here and feel like family in a day. Nobody's judging you. Nobody's looking down on you because you can't do something. Anybody will come in and help you. You know, there's a community among the true weight enthusiasts that is unlike any other I've ever had. I've been on football teams, I've been on wrestling teams, baseball, basketball, and played soccer for a little bit. I've never had a team aspect as I have in the weight room. And weightlifting, I will say it, weightlifting saved my life. I care about the physical health aspects in here. The mental health aspects in here are 100% why I come here. My 12-year-old self, I would tell him, you know, honestly, I've looked back and people have asked me questions similar to that, and people go, oh, well, I tell them to do this and I tell them to do that. But that doesn't make you the person you are today. And if you're happy with the person you are today, you need to go through all those trials and tribulations to get to be the person you are today. If I had a better childhood, I wouldn't be vying for the world championship in November. You know, if I had a better childhood, I wouldn't be the Oregon State champion and the Western Regional champion. You know, as much as my childhood sucked, and as much as young adulthood sucked, it made me the character or the person I am today. And it wasn't always the best character. It wasn't always the greatest person. But life is about learning from your mistakes. And every mistake you make is an opportunity to do something better.
Well, first, man, happy to be here today. Happy to be alive. Thankful, you know. My name is Mike Robinson II. Was born in North Carolina, Goldsboro. As a military brat, you know, it's kind of hard to say Where'd you grow up? So the place that we lived the longest is actually where my dad retired, and that was in the Bay Area, so Fairfield, California. Growing up, living abroad, Greece, Okinawa, living overseas, Germany, you kind of get a different feeling growing up as an American overseas versus an American in the States. There's a sense of freedom, a sense of responsibility, a sense of don't embarrass America. The freedom of it. So my teenage years, we grew up in Okinawa in Japan, and on the military base, it's America. You got your ID, you check in, you do whatever you want, you drive on the right side of the road, and you kind of take that freedom feeling with you. But when you go off base, you're in Japan. But yet you still function as a free American who walks wherever he wants, goes wherever he wants. You're polite, but there's this essence about you, right? And it's something that you learn really quick. Other people don't really have that. When people look at you, they don't say, oh, there's a black guy or something. That's American. That's an American right there, right? So you learn pretty quickly as a kid, hey, there's some rights that I have. Even being over here is a privilege. When we would go into grocery stores or, arcade and places, you're pulling out your allowance. $20, $30, $50, $100. And you look around, you just mowed a couple lawns and got some money. There's other people with a whole different life circumstance. Their outlook on that money that I'm spending for gum or toys could be rent. So, there's certain freedoms and certain aspects of, being in this country that are different. Regionally, if you're in America, West Coast, you go down to the South, the cost of living is different. A house may be $200,000 there for 5,000 square feet. But your income, 3,600, 36,000 a year, 50,000 a year, it's different, so it's similar in that regard. Different regions, you got to be aware, pay attention. The other thing is, taking care of yourself, taking care of the people that are with you. So, the other thing I want to say is dressing however you want. Growing up on a military basis, you get the appearance. You look like, someone who has money. A lot of us are middle class families. Right. So, kind of growing up, it was like, kids had Jordans, Fila's. That was common on the military base. And then even when we came back from being overseas, going right to the Bay Area, you learned really quickly. Now, those freedoms were gone. You don't walk around the street with your chain out. You don't walk around, without, keeping one eye behind you. Watching out for the people that are around you. We came with 4 people, we're leaving with 4 people. So it's just different, But the biggest thing I can say is kind of growing up, living around the world, I see it regionally, is this appreciation for America. The real appreciation. I went to schools where, the bell goes off, we all stand, Pledge of Allegiance, it's like a prayer. Everybody does it together, kind of sets the day off. Coming back to the United States is a little different. We didn't do that. It was a little odd. I was growing up in the Department of Defense public schools. And we come to a real public school and it's totally different.
Shell shock.
Yeah. So those are just some cultural differences that I had kind of growing up, kind of fast, really fast paced. But the thing that's most difficult, you got to learn really quickly to meet people. Learn how to talk and learn how to communicate with people from various backgrounds real quick. That's one thing I think is a huge plus growing up as a military brat, because, up here I'm a medical social worker and I'm in homes in Cape Junction, and Wolf Creek, and all these different places, and people are like, man, is it scary for you? Are you experiencing racism? And I'm like, no. You know, I still have that professional look wherever I go. I still have that ability to communicate on a human-to-human level. You know, very observant of what's going on in people's lives and able to communicate with them. So I could say, like, you know, growing up, looking at these different places that you've been, coming to a place like this, you know, even in this gym, a lot of these different guys, a lot of people, different lifestyles, different backgrounds, you find the common ground. And, you know, it's like, hey, that's my brother right there. You know, I will tell you a quick story because it didn't happen overnight, right? So I came to Oregon. I had some football scholarships, some music scholarships, went to Southern Oregon University. And during my time at Southern Oregon University, I was focused, man. I was like, look, I'm going to play football. I'm going to get my degree. I'm going to get out of Oregon as quick as I can. You know, if I get a shot to play some professional ball, great. That's what was my focus was. Man, I tell you, I'm a big believer that many times your plans aren't God's plans. He may give you an opportunity to live some of your dreams, but he ultimately wants you to fulfill his purpose in your life. So after about a year and a half of being at Southern Oregon University, I thought I was an Oregon resident. I'm living in the dorms, you know, my tuition, I thought everything was being paid for correctly. So although I had about $5,000 plus a month, my bill at the end of that year and a half was $12,000. As a 21-year-old male, I came from a California junior college, 21-year-old male who now has been told, you got 20 minutes to clean out your dorm room. You can't come back to school until you pay the $12,000 bill, and we won't release any of your records. You can't transfer anywhere else. Right. Now, you can't see it, but I have a huge cross on my arm, and I have Philippians 4:13 written in Sanskrit. I just did that like 3 weeks prior. You can't put something on and not live it. So what is that verse? I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So after I cried, after I had my tears, I called Mama. I was like, Mom, this is what happened. I know it was from love that she said, son, just come home, we'll figure it out. And I remember right then, right there, I had this feeling in me. I know the Lord talking to me. If you leave, you're going to miss out on a blessing. You just said you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. Trust me. So I did what most of us would do who are trying to be responsible. I hit the pavement. I started looking for jobs. There's something out there. I found this job that said, we want to pay you a $10,000 scholarship, $900 stipend a month, and you got to give us a 2-year commitment. But we want you to work as a counselor with at-risk youth in the schools, help kids make better decisions, fight against teenage pregnancy, help kids stay out of being juvenile delinquents. Okay, let's do it. Went there, applied for it, got the job in the same week that I was kicked out of school. I worked this job for 2 years, and my whole trajectory changed. My whole focus changed. I started meeting people right where they were, talking to people, and it was like, word of mouth started spreading. Hey, have you guys met Mike? This guy, he's a good guy. So now I'm starting to get job offers, and eventually I worked my way to where I am. I've done juvenile detention as a counselor, worked in child welfare for 10 years, was a supervisor in child welfare, and it's crazy. It's like these constant elevations. And now, ultimately, I'm in a position where I have tons of freedom. And I'm driving from house to house, like a 300-mile radius every week. And I'm coming into places where people have lost faith, people have lost hope, and you get to be a person of uplifting and share with them some words of encouragement, you know? Sometimes life is stacked against you, man. Sometimes you've been dealt a bad card. Sometimes it's not your fault, it's not my fault, you know, it's just the circumstances that we've been dealt. What I would say to them is the same thing I had to say to myself. What do I want out of life? What do I want? What makes me happy? And I'm not talking about appeasing your flesh. I'm talking about what really makes your spirit happy. So those two things got to get in alignment. You know, this focus of moving towards something that is positive, focus of making yourself better. So the first thing is find someone in your life that is doing something positive for you and start giving them thanks. I told my kids that this in Phoenix every day. When you go home from practice today, tell someone in your family that you love them. If you get used to giving gratitude, it's going to put you in a place of not wanting to look to just receive. You're going to want to look to help. The moment you tap into that part of your spirit, you're going to be a better human because you're not looking to just take. You're looking to add to something. That's what every team that I've ever been on has been successful. We've all been givers. We're giving our blood, our sweat for the team. We're giving up. I'm going to sit on the bench and drink some cold water, and I'm going to stay out here and do some extra rep, even though it's killing me, because that's my team. And we're all in it together. If this world would kind of get in that mindset, hey, we're in it together. I'm going to stop listening to all this crap music. I'm going to stop watching crap stuff. I'm going to wake up, find somebody I can help out, somebody I can uplift, and in the pursuit of that, do the things that make me happy, not self-destructive. Everybody, every man, every woman needs to have a tribe of people that push you in the direction of your interest. You know, I'm not talking about doing dirt. I'm not talking about grinding things. In this gym, if you look and you listen, you hear people working out, talking, congratulating one another. You can do one more rep. That's this atmosphere. That's this gym. I love it. When I first came in, I see all the flags hanging. You know, every branch of the U.S. military. You know, you look around, everything is about pushing yourself to be better. There's the wall over there where people have pushed their records to a new limit. You don't see that in every gym. You know, you see the meatheads, you see the people in there with shades on, staring at women, all that dumb stuff. That's not what's going on here, man. You got people who go to work during the day and come in here after work before they go home and bust their ass. Why? Because they want to make themselves better. That's the camaraderie here. Everybody in here trying to make themselves better. It's not about trying to one-up you. I'm not trying to lift more to you. I'm just trying to make me better. And in my pursuit of that, to make you better.
My name's Sam Pectol. I'm 69 years old, and I'm from Otay, San Diego, which is 5 miles from Tijuana border. But I've been here since 1978. But when I was young, I played sports, but we were very much into drugs. And being a white guy from a Mexican neighborhood, they're the ones that had all the drugs. And they treated me good because I was born there and I was raised with these guys. Started off with pot, then we turned what was called reds, where we're downers. And then I finally, after high school, graduated to heroin. It was just the drug of choice in the neighborhood. Everybody was doing it. I'm not lying. There was a couple of older brothers, and it wasn't even from my town, Otay, from the other side of town. And I was hanging out with the younger brothers, and they were already into it. And I did my first fix with them, and hate to admit it, but fell in love. I got caught on a burglary, had drugs on me, and I couldn't tell you how much, but I know it was like 10, 12 balloons. We used to call them quarters that cost 25 bucks, but it was over the limit, so they got me for dealing too.
What happened after you got out?
That's kind of a strange story. You'd have to know my parents. They loved me. They wanted to get me out of there. So they bought a house here in Medford. They liked it. They seen the old high school doing sports, getting excited. I went back to my roots. I met some guys and they had a basketball team, and I guess their basketball team was pretty good, and they wouldn't commit to me. They told me I had to have a tryout, and they'd let me know. Within 10 minutes, they whispered to me, "You're in." They had no clue I knew how to play basketball. And I took it a step further. I really went back to my roots and got in the weight room. It's my life. I've been doing it for 43 years at a high level. I mean, you know, anybody can Google this stuff. I've won 23 world championships and got 11 world records.
What would you tell the younger you?
Choose college. If you're not going to choose college, try to get in some kind of career. Have some kind of hobby. Do something that you're really passionate on. Don't go down those dark roads because you're too young right now. You don't understand what you're looking forward to. And it's not a lot. And you get in the trap. I call it the trap. It's hard to get out. I had to move 1,000 miles to get out of it.
My name is Jordan Knapp. I'm 31. Originally, I'm from La Grande, Oregon. I moved here summer of last year to teach in the area. I was at a middle school last year, and I'll be at a high school this year. I don't know if it's obvious with how I look today, but I was a beanpole growing up. When I graduated high school, I was about 6'3" and maybe 180 pounds. 13 years later, there's obviously going to be some difference. But now, I mean, I put about an inch on, so I'm 6'4", but I'm sitting at about 300 pounds. And, you know, initially when I started to work out, it was to not be the scrawny kid. You know, I was fighting those insecurities. And it was effective, but I think it was going to the gym for the wrong reasons. Then I think kind of like almost everybody suffered some kind of heartbreak in their life. And I did, and then that threw me to the gym even more so and got me onto the path where I am today. My motivation now, yeah, it's to be strong, to be healthy, but it's also to be able to process heavy stuff. You know, it's not always possible to navigate difficult emotions through the everyday minutia of the day, and at least right now, you know, the gym is cheaper than therapy. You know, I would still recommend everybody should go to therapy at some point. That's good for you. But I also like the gym when it comes to mental health. I'd say it's a close second. It's probably 1A, 1B when it comes to those areas and benefiting your mental health, but also the extra benefit of your physical health too. I think everybody has their vices, and maybe it was possible that I could have turned to like alcohol or something, but I already had a venue where it was kind of a vice. That's kind of hard to say that the gym was a vice, but you can be addicted to it just as much. It's just that the element that it has more benefits for you than it does negative effects like alcohol. So one thing that I was able to do was kind of just put my anger and frustration, whatever I was feeling, in like the bar or whatever, and use that as the motivation to lift. And then also too, like instead of taking it out on an individual, I was just taking it out on like the empty space, so that, you know, whatever the negative energy or emotions I was having, they could actually be expressed and not just bottle up. And so I was able to process them in a way that I didn't have to, you know, hold on to things like just some people kind of end up stuffing and then they explode. So, I mean, I definitely had my moments of exploding. That's not wrong, but I think I had the benefit of where I exploded was usually at the gym around people who I was comfortable with in an area that I felt safe. When you're going through those difficult moments, that you know that those people are on the same starting ground, and so you're kind of able to navigate through them. And I think also too, if you know, over the course of time, when you get close enough to friends, they're able to call you on shit. And like, I mean, when I was having that difficult time with losing a family member, I didn't have to have somebody who was like they didn't say, hey, stop moping around. They understood. Like, I mean, losing a family member is not easy. I encounter difficult circumstances, I'm able to, it's kind of like establishing a landmark, and that landmark is a reminder of things you've accomplished. Like I can do hard stuff, and I can be reminded of my ability to persevere and walk through difficult circumstances. Just because things are hard, it doesn't mean it's bad. And you know, it's one of those things where character just, it's growth. Sit down with myself at 15 and be like, you're gonna be okay. Don't worry about what other people say. Just keep moving forward. Like when you have disappointments in life, it just comes with the territory. But you have to be able to keep moving forward. And of course, life only moves forward anyway. But I think, and then also the best advice I could give is, thick skin but a soft heart. Like you'll take your chops with people, but let it bounce off. But don't let it embitter your heart. Like, and that's just beyond like the fitness world. Like, get to the fitness world, it would just be like, failure is a good thing. Embrace it. Keep moving forward, and that's it.
What is my inspiration? Like, what drives me when I train? I actually learned this from my mixed martial arts coach, one of my mixed martial arts coaches. His name is Sam Sleezer. Sam Sleezer was a world-class boxer. He won everything all the way up to the nationals, and he only lost to the national champion twice, going to the Olympic trials in Colorado Springs for boxing. But he won all the Golden Gloves, all the regionals, all of that. He won everything, and the only place he would lose would be the nationals against the national champion. And so he told me that in the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, the main thing that they do there is they practice visualization with Olympic athletes. They practice visualization, and so they will visualize themselves winning, they'll visualize themselves performing perfectly. And this isn't even a religious thing, this isn't a Christian thing, nothing like that. But one thing that they would have them do, that Sam taught me, was that they would have the Olympic athletes visualize Jesus in the room watching them train. And so because everyone knows that Jesus is the perfect man, he's the perfect human being that ever lived, it would elevate your training to perfection. So your effort would be perfect, your technique would be perfect, your focus would be perfect. Having this visualization of Jesus Christ in the room watching you elevates absolutely everything you do for anyone to the highest levels. And this is how Olympic athletes train. And so when I train, when I compete, and really whenever I do anything, I visualize Jesus there watching me. That's what I do personally. I visualize that Jesus is there in the room and he's watching everything that I do. And it causes me to relax. It causes me to focus. It causes me to exert myself. All of these things. And it also just comforts me in life too, as well. For me personally, that's it, bro.
That's it?
That's it right there.
Okay.